The US has ended all the privileges it gave to Hong Kong for creating issues with China. But why did it do this? Hong Kong got close to China and gave China the right to control. This signifies how the US pressured both Hong Kong and Taiwan to create issues for China. It even used issues like human rights to make China suffer. But there is a Chinese proverb that says, "The truth will always surface." After many efforts the US made to create a bad image of China, finally the reality is apparent to the world. But will the US rethink the removal of the Hong Kong bill? Let's find out. Welcome back to another exciting episode of our channel. Innovation Diary brings you China's innovation stories, projects, and growing influence in different parts of the world. If you are new to the channel and enjoy learning about fast-paced modernity, especially China's development and growing power, you will find our videos intriguing. In this video, we will discuss how the US uses matters like human rights to get benefits against China. We will also talk about the reasons that make the experts suggest the US rethink its decisions. The US decided to remove Hong Kong's trade office privileges, a move that could significantly impact the United States' economic relations with Hong Kong and China. The proposed bill aims to empower the President of the United States with the authority to revoke the privileges, exemptions, and immunities granted to Hong Kong's 3 economic and trade offices within the US. This legislation, while targeted at China for its actions against Hong Kong's autonomy, raises concerns regarding its impact on Hong Kong itself. For the past decade, Hong Kong has been connected to the Western world. This unique status has allowed for relatively unrestricted trade and economic activities. However, the bill threatens to strip Hong Kong of this special trade status, making it the primary victim of the US action. But why is the US no longer allowing Hong Kong to enjoy the privileges? The potential removal of privileges from Hong Kong's economic and trade offices could have far-reaching consequences for economic relations between the United States and Hong Kong. These offices serve as official representatives of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region to the US, facilitating trade and investment. Losing these privileges could disrupt the existing economic ties between the two entities, impacting businesses on both sides. To understand the significance of this bill, it is essential to consider the context in which Hong Kong's economic and trade offices were granted their privileges. These privileges were conferred with the understanding that Hong Kong would maintain a degree of autonomy, free from the authoritarian control of the Chinese Communist Party. Unfortunately, this understanding changed with the imposition of Beijing's national security law in 2020. In simple words, the US wanted Hong Kong to keep creating issues with China to enjoy privileges. Following the implementation of the bipartisan Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, the United States no longer recognizes Hong Kong as autonomous. This act was a response to China's increasing relations with Hong Kong. The US now says, Hong Kong now serves as an instrument that the Chinese Communist Party uses to get into the Western world. The bill to remove Hong Kong's trade office privileges is a result of the United States' desire to hold China accountable for its actions in Hong Kong. However, the situation is much more complex. It not only impacts the US-Hong Kong relationship, but also threatens to isolate Hong Kong and its residents, who have played no role in the actions of the Chinese government. The US wants to punish Hong Kong for not creating issues for China. Considering the nature of this issue, there is a compelling need for the United States to reassess the bill. But the question is, why is Hong Kong getting closer to China? And why does the US only support Hong Kong in ending ties with China? In June 2020, Beijing passed the national security law for Hong Kong, a move that significantly altered the city's political landscape. The law criminalized secession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces and allowed mainland Chinese security agencies to operate in Hong Kong. This move signifies that Hong Kong is a part of China. At first, many people in Hong Kong were not happy about this. They had some problems with it. But over time, things started to change. China became more important in the world, and Hong Kong decided to get closer to China. Hong Kong agreed to let China have more control over it. This made the United States upset. The US didn't want this to happen. They wanted Hong Kong to stay separate from China. They thought this would slow down China's progress. But the US plans didn't work out, and they decided to take away the privileges they used to give to Hong Kong. So, what does all of this mean? It means that Hong Kong used to have some special rights and privileges from the United States. But because of the new law, and Hong Kong getting closer to China, the US decided to stop that. Hong Kong's relationship with China has shifted, and it's no longer as separate as it used to be. This simply means that the US tried to create issues for China. When it was talking about human rights, it was promoting conflict between China and Hong Kong. In response to China getting closer to Hong Kong, the United States took several measures to show its support for the people of Hong Kong and to hold China accountable. Now let's talk about the impact of ending the US privileges on Hong Kong. One of the key elements that the proposed bill to remove Hong Kong's trade office privileges addresses is the role of Hong Kong's economic and trade offices in the United States. Revoking the privileges of Hong Kong could have diplomatic repercussions, as it would be a direct response to China's actions in Hong Kong. This could strain the diplomatic relationship between the United States and China, potentially leading to further tensions in an already complex relationship. The bill's measures would also have a significant economic impact on Hong Kong. Beyond the practical implications, the bill carries symbolic significance. It serves as an example of the United States' commitment to holding China back with its actions. But it is miserably failing. The experts even say that China's close relations with Hong Kong will nullify the impact of US restrictions on China. As China holds Hong Kong strong, the US actions won't matter at all. As China takes more control over Hong Kong, it seems the United States may not matter as much as before. Experts think that China's control over Hong Kong isn't just about stopping disagreements there. It's also a way for China to protect itself from US restrictions. By having more control over Hong Kong, China can find a way to get around some of the limits the US has put in place. One important thing is that Hong Kong is a big global place for business. It's where a lot of trade and money happens. The US has used its power to make it harder for Chinese companies in Hong Kong. But as China gets more control over Hong Kong, they can move their money without following the US rules. One thing to note here is that the US uses anything, even human rights, for its interests. The United States, as a global superpower, has often taken on the role of a watchdog for human rights around the world. It has raised concerns and criticisms about the human rights situations in many countries, including China. While addressing human rights issues is undoubtedly an essential thing, the US uses this as a diplomatic tool to advance its interests, particularly in its relationship with China. Critics argue that the US sometimes uses human rights matters as an excuse to curtail China's growth, and this has led to questions about the intentions behind such actions. Some observers argue that the United States utilizes human rights as a convenient political tool in its rivalry with China. They suggest that the US government may prioritize its strategic and economic interests over genuine concern for human rights. The experts are telling the US to rethink this, as it can destroy the US's reputation.